Something I've been thinking about a lot. I've been thinking about it for the last 15 years, but even more so lately with social media and that kind of stuff. And why is it that so many people are struggling with this hobby? You've got people that are burning out, you've got people that can't keep a fish alive, you've got people that overextend like myself and need to reel it back. There's all these things. And why is this a phenomenon that happens in this hobby that doesn't always happen in other hobbies? I think we approach the hobby from the wrong angle. A lot of us approach it from, hey, I could read this textbook, this research paper, and download this information, and now I am proficient in this skill. This hobby is not like that. In fact, the analogy I want to use here, and I thought about this for quite a while, is I think fish keeping is more like a sport. You can train, you can learn, but that doesn't mean you'll be good at that role. And so the analogy I'm going to use today, and if you don't live in the United States, I apologize for that, but a sports team of like baseball. Let's pick baseball today. You might be very passionate about baseball, you might have watched it all of your life, you might be reading, you might be figuring out how to play the game, reading the rules. At the end of the day, you don't get to play the position you want. Maybe you get to play an outfielder instead of first base, or the catcher, or the pitcher. So even though you've done all the research and you've asked all the people how to do it and gotten tips and tricks, you yourself have never adapted to it. And I find that happens to us all the time in aquariums. We might learn from someone like Dean on how to breed fish. You might learn some stuff from me, or you might look at an influential aquascaper and go, wow, they're making such magnificent stuff, why can't I do that? And so you read about the rule of thirds and the golden triangle trying to make that aquascape. You read about, well, what are all the ways to hatch live baby brine shrimp and how to breed this specific fish, and you might not get that result. And it's because we're not applying this to ourselves. We're applying this to an overall thing that doesn't really make sense because we're individuals. This is an individual hobby. We need to find our own strong sets of skills in this hobby, and oftentimes we don't, especially when you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, you don't know where. You don't know, you like the idea of playing baseball, and you like the idea of being in a sport, you like the idea of fish, but you don't know what part you actually fit in on, right? I think that's the hardest part, is we all think, hey, I could be that person, I can play that position. And the reality is, you only know that after doing it for a long time. And so when we watch someone doing it, we naturally assume that we can do it, because I think with fish keeping, we don't see a physical limitation there. We don't say like, oh, I don't have those muscles, or I can't run that fast, or I can't do that skill, I can't throw a ball and make it curve that way. Instead you go, oh, that looks really easy. Someone took a fish tank, they put in this fish and this plant, and they fed this food, and they made more, and that's what I want to do. Or they set up this whole room, it looks so nice, I wish I could do that. And maybe that's what you feel like when you're new to the hobby. You go, oh wow, I wish I could have all that. Meanwhile, maybe if you've been in baseball for a long time, your body's breaking down, you're tired of it, and it's becoming too much. I think what we have to analyze here is, what position are you going to be good at? You got to figure that out. And then at what level? You know, you find a lot of people that might have loved playing baseball in high school and college, but never went on to be a professional. You find people that became professionals and they end up hating the hobby, or they end up loving it, or they really excel at it, or it becomes a money-making thing. And I think we need to kind of self-analyze here and go, okay, well, what does it mean for me? And I think for most of us, what it needs to be is spending time with nature and enjoying what we're doing and learning. So you should still bring on skills. Ask your friend, right? If you're going to show up to baseball practice and you see someone that can do something you can't do, guess what? You go, wow, how do you do that? And then you go, great, I'll try and do that. But someday you might realize, hey, I can't do that. I don't have that skill. I haven't spent enough time, or whatever it's going to be, but you might be really good at something else. And that's what I think is important here, is that if you're chasing that high-end planet tank and you can't pull it off, maybe that's not for you. Maybe you'll enjoy the jungle scape, and maybe you'll enjoy breeding fish, or maybe you'll enjoy getting your family or your kids into it, or whatever it's going to be. And that's what the hobby is supposed to be, is you and nature, not so much you versus other people. And I think we treat this as a sport when we should be treating it as like a self-journey. And so think of it more like a marathon. You're a marathon runner. How do you get to run further? How do you train better? How do you get your aquariums in the place they want to go for when they want to go? Sports, for most people, are not year-round, right? Even as a professional, you have the season you play, and you have the off season, maybe you rest and train. A hobby level, like, oh, I like to watch baseball, let's say. I watch that for 6 or 8 months, and then I have a quarter off. Well, fish keeping, we don't do that. We have fish all the time, obsess about it, do it more, do it more, do it more. And that's what leads to the burnout and the feelings of like, why can't I accomplish this? Maybe you got to come back to it, and we don't do that enough, right? We don't come back to it and go, you know what, let me give it another try a few years down the road. And I think that's what's missing from this hobby, is enough people talking about this hobby should be exactly what you want it to be and not what anyone else wants it to be. And so if someone says you can only hit a home run swinging this way, know that that's not correct, because so many people hit home runs in all different ways. You know, just look at it from different stances, right-handed, left-handed, different weights of the bat, all of these things, all the tools and all the techniques that go into it are different. And so that's how we get in our hobby, where people can be doing all these crazy things. Those fish can't go together. You can't do this, you can't do that. They want high pH, they want low pH, wild caught, non-wild caught, all of this. And somehow, at the end of the day, it all kind of seems to happen. Whether it works out or it doesn't work out, maybe you struck out that time, but even the best batters in the world strike out a lot. But it's the more at-bats you take, the more successful you're gonna be. Hopefully you're learning while you're doing it, and that's what's gonna lead you to victory. So if you want to know the 5 mistakes that I've made basically in my fish keeping career that can speed you up, you know, and get that advice, if you will, click right here, watch this video, another short video to hopefully turn your fish keeping into what you want it to be.